This is the Altem Life Podcast.
Let's go check it out.
Welcome to episode 2. We are back for another Altem Life Podcast.
Yeah. Had a lot of good feedback from our first one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of suggestions on what we should talk about. So
thank you for those.
Yes.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you. And listening.
And commenting.
Yeah. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time we had several suggestions on this topic, so we figured let's just go ahead and talk about it today. And that is our move from Missouri to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in some of our previous videos, we did a Q&A one time and kind of talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But we thought since podcasts are all about talking, we'll actually go into a little bit more detail of,
there's a lot to talk about with it.
yeah, our full move. So I guess let's get started with Missouri. For those of you that don't know, we are from Missouri.
Kind of.
I
Not originally for me, but for you, yes.
I always lived in Missouri. You, however, lived multiple places.
Yeah. Originally from Nebraska, though.
But we met in Missouri,
Yep.
and that is where our journey began.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned in the last episode, I think, that we got married down in Florida, but we were still living in Missouri at that time. So after we got married, we did our honeymoon, and then we had bought a house in Missouri. And so that's kind of where we started.
Mm-hmm.
And then we bought another house in Missouri, and then things kind of changed.
Mm-hmm. I should note, for those of you that are not watching, we do have Berlioz on Timber's lap right now. So if you hear cat noises or anything like that, Berlioz is part of this podcast. But if you're watching, you can clearly see him down on Timber's lap.
We'll see how long this lasts.
But yeah, so we were in a house we really enjoyed in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Long term, I knew that I wanted to move to Florida. That was always a goal of mine for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, was it so much your goal or just kind of like your...
I knew I didn't want to stay in Missouri forever.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our family lived in the Midwest, majority in Missouri at that time. So it was convenient. I was pretty content. I liked my job. I was happy there. Our house was great. But I knew that we weren't going to be in Missouri forever. I didn't know if Florida was going to be it. But you were pretty set on it.
Did you have any other places that you were like, ooh, I could live here? Because for me, it was Florida. I was like...
I mean, there's just so many things that go into play when you're deciding to move somewhere, especially somewhere where you are not super familiar with. Like Florida, I mean, we had, like we said in our last episode, we had vacation there, but it was just the beach and it was just the theme parks.
Right.
And as we all know, there's a lot more that goes into Florida than just the theme parks and beaches. So, and I didn't know any of that. So, I didn't really, like you said, I had lived a lot of places, and I knew that I didn't want to stay in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I didn't want to go to the West Coast. So I don't really know. I didn't have any other ideas. Like I said, I was pretty content at the time, so I wasn't really thinking about where else I was going to go yet.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, for me, one reason I didn't want to stay in the Midwest would be how cold it gets. Mm-hmm. That was kind of one of my main reasons. I was like, I don't want to deal with the cold anymore. I want to be somewhere else to where it's warm and not cold. And
One of our cats is snoring. Sorry. I heard her on the thing. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, the other one's right down in the floor. And then the other one, I think, is downstairs. But so ignore the snoring.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to be somewhere where it was warm and not really cold ever. I mean, it does get chilly here, but I didn't want snow or ice. And I also wanted to be somewhere where you could drive within an hour and a half and be pretty much anywhere you wanted.
Yeah.
Where we were at in Missouri, I mean, we were, you could go to Branson, which we were within 45 minutes of Branson.
We were in southwest Missouri.
Yeah, and we'd been to Branson a lot. So that was kind of like worn out, you could say. We did it a bunch. And then you could drive, I don't know, within a couple hours to 3 hours to, you got your Kansas Cities and your St. Louis and all that area. So,
and ultimately that wasn't really our scene anyways. We went a couple of times to, I went to Kansas City and St. Louis, and it's okay. It just wasn't our vibe. So,
well, and if you didn't stay there, it was really a long day because you had to drive,
it was a full day.
Say 3 hours there, 3 hours back, 6 hours.
Right.
You do something for 3 hours, you're already 9 hours in the day. So you really wanted to stay in Kansas City or St. Louis if you did it.
And I think for you too, like you said, you had grown up in Missouri your whole life. So it is beautiful. There are really pretty parts of Missouri, and there are neat things to do there. But I think, as with anywhere, like I know people down here in Florida that are like, I'd love to leave Florida. I want to go live, wherever else. And I'm like, but there's so much to do here. Mm-hmm. So I think it's like, in your instance, you had lived there your whole life. Like you said, it was kind of worn out at that point.
I will say, though, in my experience, the people who I've talked to in Florida that have said that haven't really gone and done a whole lot.
Yeah, not big explorers. Yeah.
I feel like we are big explorers, and we kind of had explored all of Missouri. I mean, we went all the way up to Marceline, where, for those of you that don't know, that's where Main Street USA in Disney World.
Yeah. Walt lived there.
Walt lived there as a kid, and that's what he loved it. And so he wanted to take his little Main Street there,
right,
and make it Main Street at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
And
we had gone and that's way north Missouri, and then we had gone all the way down to the Arkansas border.
Yeah.
And into Arkansas and, all the surrounding areas. So.
And Kansas City and St. Louis. So the whole.
Yeah. Jeff City. All of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we just had gotten kind of, bored of it. But we also knew, like, it would be a big decision to make because family was there. And like we said, we had never lived anywhere else together. So a lot of prayer in that time. Like I said, I was not as ready to move as you were. And so we just spent a lot of time praying about it, but then something happened with your job. And
the place closed its doors. So like I had to, for a few months, just kind of start my own thing because my long-term goal was let's move. So, I had some other things that fell through. So I felt like that was a time that God was really speaking to me, saying, I'm giving you this opportunity to work for yourself. But while doing that, you can get better prepared on what it takes to move, which I did. I was looking up, I was on YouTube all the time looking up stuff.
And that was August, September of 2019, whenever it was the first job that you had coming out of college, and first big kid job.
Yeah.
And like you said, the company closed, and you were able to stay there until the end, which was really great. But then August or September, I can't remember. Yeah, you had to figure it out. And I was starting the school year, and we were like, ooh.
Yeah. I think it was October because we went up to see your family in Nebraska, and we were talking about it. So,
gotcha.
But I didn't know what to do. And sometimes you don't know why certain things happen. But God does close doors, or in this case, shuts doors.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And looking back, you can always be like, I can see why that happened, because had it not happened, I don't know if we would have moved yet.
Right.
I think we would still be.
We would have been content with what we had.
Yeah. We would have been freezing right now. It's cold up there. I can tell you that much. But with those doors that closed, because I applied at a lot of places, and all of them closed. And at one point,
that's been your test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, I remember thinking, like, all right, God, like, what do you want? Like, what am I supposed to do? Because it's not like I was applying for these big CEO jobs. I was applying for jobs that I was qualified for. And I would go through all these interviews. I think one time I went through, 4 interviews and thought for sure I got it, only to find out through an email that I didn't get it.
They hired internally.
Yeah. But everything happens for a reason. And so I remember I would be doing all these spreadsheets and stuff, and you would come home and I'd say, look at all this stuff I found. you were just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Because you were still working.
Yeah.
And
I was teaching. And if there's any teachers out there, especially beginning of the year, that time, you're like, I can't handle anything else right now.
Yeah, your focus was on that. And I remember thinking, come on, I want to like show you this. But, I'm going from working for myself throughout the whole day. And you're going from being with a ton of kids.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, And so I kind of decided that, I wouldn't really necessarily bother you during school. But I would try to do as much research as I could. So I was looking up places to live. I was looking up house prices. I was looking up schools, distances to theme parks and beaches and everything there is to know about Florida. And that's one reason why I wanted to do this podcast, because we had those same questions.
Yeah.
And I think you can research and see other people's story, but everybody's is going to be different.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of unknown when it comes to moving, especially somewhere you've never... we had moved before, but it was just within the same town in the same area. So making a big move like that, the more research you can do, the better.
Yeah, definitely. Well, then, I don't know what it took, but you finally were like, yeah, let's move. Do you remember what? I don't currently remember.
I really don't remember at all.
It was all of a sudden like, all right, let's figure it out kind of thing. I don't know if maybe it was another cold winter or something like that, but I do remember because I
think we had talked to family about it, and that kind of made me feel a little bit better too, because we'd spoken with my dad, and his family still lived up in Nebraska, so we weren't around them all the time, but we were still within driving distance. But they were incredibly supportive whenever we brought up the idea of maybe moving down to Florida. And then same with my mom's family. We had spoken with her about it, and we lived fairly close to them. And so that helped me feel more at ease. And then, of course, your parents, too, they were kind of in a different situation, but to where they were going to be able to see us a little bit more. And they were supportive. So I think that was really the thing that I needed to be able to move away. Yeah. And take that leap.
And, I mean, that's essentially what we did. So we decided that the only way to know where to move to is to go see each place that is on our list of cities, towns that we want to live in. And with you being a teacher, me working for myself, spring break was really, if we wanted to move by summer, spring break was really the time to do it, because you were going to have it off. And well, the perks of working for yourself is you can make your own spring break. Right. And so my parents wanted to tag along, and they were able to at that time tag along and help us out. And so we decided that we would make a spring break road trip around Florida.
March 2020.
2020. We all know what happened at the beginning of 2020.
So when I left for spring break, everything was still like, people were talking about COVID or whatever. And so we were like, well, nothing was shut down. There was nothing like that. But we kind of stocked up on Lysol wipes and hand sanitizer and all that kind of stuff whenever we were going to go on a road trip, and packed it up and headed on down to Florida for spring break. And you had a list of towns, and I gave input on that too.
Yeah. You did some research there and found some places. And so just to kind of go through the places, first stop, we were going to kind of stop central-ish. It's considered Central Florida for us. I don't really consider it Central Florida. It's more of, I guess, like Central West Florida. I consider Central Florida being like Orlando, like Central Florida. But we decided to stop in Inverness. We've done several videos around Inverness now, but I had never heard of it. And you had actually found a video about it, about their new park they put in. And we were like, wow, this is cool. Because part of us, on one end, we didn't want a big city. Right. But on the other end, we didn't want to be far from everything. So it was kind of a tough situation of like, where should we go? So the first stop was Inverness. Did that not look different in 2020? Yeah. Looked way different. Yeah. There was no one out and about. And we didn't know if maybe that's just the way the town was at that time because, again, didn't know about Inverness.
Mm-hmm.
And actually fell in love with it because it was this peaceful, cute little town.
They had nice parks. They had a cute, the downtown wasn't anything like massive or impressive, but it was cute. They had like good little spots. We stopped and ate somewhere and it was good.
Yep.
And driving around, it was kind of a slower pace, which we tend to gravitate toward more,
Right.
which doesn't seem like it because we're always on the go. But when we're at home, we like for it to be quiet and chill and that kind of thing. So we did like that part of it.
We ate at the pub.
Pine Street Pub.
Pine Street Pub. Love that. Of course, good thing about being in Florida during that time is, one of the rules was kind of stay outside. And most restaurants in Florida have outdoor seating.
Right.
So we were able to go
and the weather was great, of course.
We were able to go to all of the outside sections of the restaurant. So that was good. But we did a visit there. We didn't spend the night there.
No.
We just
We spent
drove
the night
around.
in Tampa, I
Yeah.
think.
So after there, we drove down to Tampa, and we never really wanted to live in Tampa.
Clearwater, I think. Was it Tampa or Clearwater?
Tampa, because we stayed right there on the bay.
Oh, yeah.
Ate at Bahama Breeze, which was my first time, I think, ever eaten at a Bahama Breeze. And we knew we didn't want to live in Tampa, but we wanted to at least be in Tampa, one, because it was still part of a vacation, and two, just to see how close we actually wanted to live to Tampa.
And we had never really explored Tampa
That's
either.
right.
So we wanted to see, like you said, is this somewhere we would like to be close enough to visit occasionally?
Boy, was that a different time. You could cross all 4 lanes, 6 lanes, whatever it is, of traffic because there was literally no one on the road.
And so as we're driving around on this road trip, it literally was the week that everything started kind of getting a lot more serious and shutting down. And we're driving, going to our hotel, and they're like, we're not doing breakfast. You're only getting it in a to-go bag. We were like, oh, okay. So it was really interesting. It was really that transitional period in kind of the country where that shutdown was happening. So like you said, no one was really out and about at all.
Which was kind of oh, Tampa's nice because
oh, yeah.
you have all this stuff and you can get anywhere.
What a quiet little town.
Quiet and stuff. Very misleading though.
Yeah,
very misleading. But we stayed there the first night, and then after that we were like, let's now head more toward that Orlando Central area that we always liked Orlando due to the theme parks. And so the next stop, we didn't stay, but we decided just to kind of swing through, and that was Winter Park because Mr. Rogers likes it, then we should like it too. And so we had always heard, Mr. Rogers had lived there for quite a while. And so we're like, let's just check it out. We didn't really have it on our radar to actually live there. I think it was...
No, because we could not afford
it, one. That was the main reason. Two, it was just kind of too busy and too close to Orlando. Definitely couldn't afford it.
Yeah, that's the real reason.
Yeah, definitely.
Teacher.
Yeah, right. Working for yourself.
Yeah.
So after Winter Park, trying to think of how the road goes, I think the next stop was just to briefly swing through Orlando, just because we already went through Tampa, so why not swing through Orlando and check that out? Actual Orlando, not the theme parks, because one, they were closing, and two, we had already been, but we actually stayed pretty close to Universal Studios.
Yeah, it was on the Turkey Lake Road or whatever.
Yeah, and it was weird too, because same thing, they're like, here's your bag of breakfast. When you go up to your room, you're like one of 3 or 4 families that are staying in here today. And so we did that knowing, all right, we're not going to live in Orlando.
Yeah.
But then our next stop, which we had researched and watched a lot of videos on this place, and that was Winter Garden.
Yep.
So many winters in here.
Yeah.
You're in Florida and it's winter this, winter that.
Right.
But that place their marketing was amazing. I mean, you could go on and look up so many different videos of everything they had. They had amazing downtown.
Yeah.
That was kind of on our top of our list there. But again, another issue is you're next to the theme parks and
couldn't afford it.
Prices were very, very high there. So we thought, well, maybe we can just
It was nice to go and see, though.
It was. We really enjoyed it. Maybe we can go a little bit outside of that. So we stopped in Claremont while we were over there. Mm-hmm. Claremont's growing rapidly, I should say.
Yeah, and more commercialized. It reminded us of Springfield, Missouri, which is where we lived in Missouri.
You got your commercial restaurant, like your commercialized restaurants, stores, your Targets, things like that. And so it definitely did remind us of that. And you're so close to Winter Garden, you're so close to Orlando that traffic, we now know traffic is terrible. At that time, it looked a little different, but it was more in the price range because you could kind of find areas that weren't as expensive as other areas. But we still were kind of like, it's not quite for us.
We didn't like Springfield in Missouri anyway.
We moved from that.
It's nice to go and visit, right? If you need to go shopping or whatever.
Right.
But we knew we didn't want to live somewhere like that.
Yeah. And so on the last leg of the trip, we rounded it out going back to Inverness because we're like, let's just double.
We went to Mount Dora.
That's right. I forgot. Hello.
Duh.
We went to Mount Dora next.
Yeah.
Absolutely fell in love with Mount Dora. Issue is
Price.
in Mount Dora,
Yeah.
pricing.
Right. And we didn't know enough about
The surrounding
The
area
areas,
or anything like that. And so now I can say we went back to Inverness because we were like, pricing's good there.
it's close to Tampa. It's a good, decent drive to.
It was about an hour and a half to
theme
either
parks.
Tampa or Orlando.
Right.
And we're like, you know what? This seems like the spot. We felt like God was telling us this is the spot. The only issue is we needed to find jobs.
Yep.
But the good news about finding the location, now you can start looking for jobs. And that's exactly what I did. You were being a teacher, like I could get a job.
I knew
any
I
place.
could, find somewhere to get a job.
Yeah.
So I wasn't as worried about it. But you, on the other hand, didn't have a clear-cut career like I did.
Right.
He has a degree in business, and so it's pretty broad.
Management and marketing.
Oh, sorry. I never know the specifics. So he, could kind of go anywhere. It's not quite as clear-cut as mine.
It's a love-hate relationship because you can work anywhere, but you also can't work anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough.
Yeah, and a lot of people have started to get that degree too.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
That's all right.
It all works out.
But I started looking for jobs and actually came across a job that was looking for pretty much what I used to do.
Well, real quick, on the way, I think we ended up staying an extra day or so because when we were in Tampa, I got the message saying that schools are going to continue to stay closed because it was our spring break.
That's right.
And they said we're going to be closed for another week, I think is what they said at that point. Ended up being the rest of the year. But so I think we spread it out a couple more days.
I think so. Yeah.
Took our time getting back home at least.
Yeah. But on the way home, I was searching for jobs and found one that I was like, this would fit, what I've done in the past. And so I definitely took a chance and reached out and started that process. But in the meantime, when we got back home, we had to start also the packing process, which, long story short, I ended up getting that job. So, I'm not going to go into too much detail on getting a job and all that, but I definitely ended up getting the job.
And it all worked, like you said, it was a God thing because it was pretty incredible how you ended up getting it, actually.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, the owner took a chance on somebody that lived out of state.
Yeah.
And
in the midst of the shutdown and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, she knew I was finishing out the school year. I had decided, right? I wasn't going to move in the middle of all of it. We hadn't sold our house, anything like that. So we said, well, we'll just finish out the school year and then told your then boss, we'll be down in June.
Yep.
And like you said, then it was time to get our house on the market.
Yeah. And I worked basically from home for her in the meantime.
May.
Yeah. While we knew we were going to get ready. So I do appreciate the chance that was taken because that's really the reason we were able to move.
Yeah.
Was due to the fact that,
because I said we're not moving if you don't have a job.
Someone took a chance on me from another state.
Yep.
And so that worked out. But like you said, it was time to move. Time to sell the house, which we
It
knew
was
the house
nice,
would
though,
sell right
yeah.
away. I mean, that was the thing. We knew the house would, first time it was listed, it would go under contract.
And it did,
It did.
within like 24 hours, I think. Beautiful house. We loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But the one blessing of it, and I know there were a lot of, terrible times that came about in 2020, but the one blessing was that I wasn't having to go into work. I was doing virtual school, and you were working remote, for your new job. So we did have that time to stay home and get everything packed and take our time to do that. But we sold our house quickly. And then we had to think about, where are we going to go?
Yeah.
Where are we going to live in Florida, house-wise?
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, anytime you do question why things happen, just always remember God has a plan.
Yeah.
Because for us, our house was sold. We had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate enough to where my parents lived on my grandparents' property. There was they built a home on the property. And so after my grandparents had passed away, then my parents were able to also have this extra house on their property. And so when we knew our house was under contract, we started moving stuff from our house over to that house.
And they lived about an hour and 15
Yeah.
minutes away from us in Missouri. So,
But I don't know what we would have had to get storage or something. I mean, so unfortunately, if you're not in that situation, I guess a tip would be you're probably going to have to get some sort of storage
unit.
or one of the pods,
yeah.
because we almost went that route too.
Or we had even looked into doing a rental home
Yeah.
in like a short-term rental
Yeah.
type thing too.
Dogs, though, and cats were an issue,
Right.
trying to find something like
Right.
that. But we were fortunate enough to have that situation. And so really we needed to find a home, but we knew our home was going to sell. And then we would have some time in between of kind of being homeless. But for us, got to go to the house that my grandparents
We had somewhere to stay, which
owned,
was good.
and stay there for...
And your parents had just remodeled it.
Yeah.
So that was
That's
another
a
blessing.
win-win for us. So, and it's kind of like living at home. So like you get the meals cooked, you
Yeah.
get to, do all this stuff. Yeah. So, and by that time it had been summer, so you weren't working
Right.
with the school. And for me, I was still doing my own thing, but I was working with the new person that hired me in Florida. So
Yeah.
I still had a kind of a flexible schedule, if you will. I mean, there were certain hours I had to get things done, but she was well aware that we were in the process of moving.
Right.
And after that, we had to find a house.
Yeah. So while we were kind of transporting all of our stuff, after we had closed on or not closed, but gone under contract on our first house, we were like, okay, well, we need to start looking for our house down in Inverness. And luckily, our real estate agent was really good about, she knew the area. And that's the biggest thing. If you're looking to move out of state, find a good real estate agent that you trust and that communicates well and knows the area.
Definitely.
That's my biggest thing, because she was able to help steer us in the right direction, because we had spent like half a day in Inverness. So we didn't know all the ins and outs of it and where we would want to live. So she helped us with that and sent us videos of houses and things like that. And we found one and
bought it sight unseen.
well, but that we saw that house and we thought, we don't really know. I had the pool and we're like, well, that might be cool. It was at the higher end of our price range, I think. So we looked at a couple of other I say that with air quotes because
virtually looked.
Then we saw this one and it had the pool and we're like, well, it's at the higher end of our price range, but we can make it work if we get the right deal. And so she helped us get a good deal and bought the house without having physically gone there or seen it. So that was a first.
Yeah. And so I don't think we ever mentioned it before, but we did live in Inverness.
Yeah.
That's where we lived.
Yeah.
And we actually made another trip back down because we're like, we need to do a final walkthrough and see the house before we officially close. So we loaded up the family truckster again with my parents, came on down. And actually, that's the first time I met my boss in person. And so met her and looked at the house and said, we're good to go. So kind of to skip a little fast forward a little bit. We ended up buying the house, and we made another trip down.
Right.
Did we make another trip down, or was the next trip down just to move?
Next trip down was just to move.
And as far as tips with moving, we knew that we would need like a Penske truck. Mm-hmm. And another God blessing was my mom knew someone that worked for Penske. And so she actually gave us a really good deal.
Yeah.
And we had money saved up. We had like $1,000 saved up for the truck. I think it ended up being like $750-ish, $800 or something. I'm sure prices have gone up now, but that was to load it in Missouri, take it down to Inverness, drop it off down there.
And it had the trailer on the back for your car.
It had the trailer to haul my car. And the plan was my parents were going to take that down. Because fortunately, they're retired.
Right.
At that time, they both were retired, and they had the flexibility to do that. So we really appreciate that. And they loaded up the truck. Yeah. Everything packed in there, our whole
your
entire
car tagging along in the back.
Yep. And they were leaving on a Monday or Tuesday or something. We closed on a Friday. They were leaving on a Wednesday because they were going to do a 2-day trip. They were going to drive part way, spend the night, drive part way, and then get to where our house was. And we were going to drive all night because guess what? We had 2 dogs and 3 cats to take.
Yep.
And if you ever travel with pets, it's hard to find a hotel that'll have 5 animals.
Nor do I want to stay in a hotel with all 5 animals, to be completely honest.
So it was up to us to drive through the night, and that's exactly what we did. We left on a Thursday around 2 or 3 o'clock, and said we're gonna pull an all-nighter.
Yeah.
And we did, and it was one of the hardest things
brutal.
We've ever done. It was terrible, actually. I know we said we weren't jealous of my parents driving the big rig, but they said they weren't jealous of us driving our pets either, because both, I think, were equally bad.
It was a lose-lose.
It was. On the way, my parents ran into some trouble with the trailer, though.
Yeah.
And they went through some road construction that kind of took them off the road a little bit. And there was like so much road work that the trailer like bounced or something.
They had to go off the shoulder of the road or something like that, I think.
And the trailer got all messed up. But I do appreciate Penske, because they were like, oh, this happens a lot, so here's a new trailer. We'll just get everything switched over and you're good to go. But I think from then on they said, don't ever ask us to do this again. And I don't blame them. It was, that was rough. But
yeah, and they made it down there, though, and they had a hotel in Inverness that they parked the Penske at and stayed the night waiting for us to get there, and drove through the night, got there.
They parked the Penske at our house and then took my car around, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they do that?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so that worked out for them.
Yeah.
But for us,
we drove straight to the house. Luckily, we closed at our house because, again, 2020, and it was all kind of flexible. But we closed there, and then we went to your parents' hotel room and slept.
Got Jimmy John's and slept.
Yeah.
And I don't unfortunately really remember much of it, because there came a point in that trip to where we were on so much caffeine, like you started feeling like sick.
Yeah.
And dizzy and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember we got there, we just said, tell us where to sign. Yeah. I don't know what we were signing at that point. Put the dogs in the garage while we were signing so they could have a spot to run around in for now. And I will say the dogs did excellent. Honestly, the pets did good.
Yeah.
Dogs were excellent. We stopped multiple spots with, I think the Love's truck stops.
Yeah.
In case you have pets, Love's have like the dog
They have
park.
an app too, where it shows like the closest one, which was nice. We did use the Love's pet stops, and then the cats we had to use gabapentin.
Yes.
So if you have cats that don't care to ride in the car, maybe talk to your vet about that, because that was helpful. At least we didn't put them in carriers, because that's how many hours.
Yeah.
They were just...
And we had their litter box in the back. It was rough.
It was rough. But they were all pretty chill until about the last 2 hours, and then it was pedal to the metal, get there as quick as we can.
Yep. But we ended up getting there, and everybody was safe, so praise God for that, and ended up sleeping for a while in the hotel room, eating Jimmy John's and all that. And then finally that evening, the next day unpack. And then my dad built a doghouse, big doghouse. We showed our doghouse in some of our previous videos, but built a big air-conditioned doghouse for our dogs so they'd have a place to be. And it was hot. It was summer.
Yeah.
And we were dipping our heads in the pool.
And your mom and I were just floating in the pool.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we made it and you've started teaching. I got to physically go into work.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that. I mean, it was, a lot of people ask when's the best time to do it. I don't think there's ever the best time to do it. You just have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of the Shia LaBeouf video where he says,
do it.
If you're watching the video, you can see us, but
just
do it. Do it. Yeah. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that comment.
Pray about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pray about it, then do it. There's a lot of people that ask us all these questions, and they ask us, all these, when's the best time to move, how to move, and that's our story. It
probably wasn't the best way to do it, so I don't know that I would take our advice completely.
But it worked.
But yeah, it worked. We got here.
And we did a lot of research too. So
I think that the biggest things, one, do research, right? Make your list of like non-negotiables of things that are important to you. Two, find a good real estate agent that's local, that's been there, that you trust. And then
save money.
Yeah.
It is expensive.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, look into the cost of everything. Moving trucks. Yeah. All of, obviously, the house expenses that come with inspections and blah, blah, blah.
And also just don't be scared. Like,
right.
You can live your whole life being scared and nothing will ever get done.
Yeah.
Or you can step out in faith, trust God's plan. And, I mean, because for me, I could feel that it was, something I wanted to do.
Right.
It's not like I just said, let's just do this. I have no idea. I could tell it was something that God was telling me was something we needed to do, was move. And so I don't regret it one bit.
Right.
I do miss family, but for me, my parents being retired actually did move to Florida. Mm-hmm. And I know kind of long-term plan, hopefully for your side of the family, they'll end up making their way down here. The positive is they want to come visit all the time. I was going to say,
if not, it's a good vacation spot. Everybody, I've had all of my family now come down, and we've gone and done all the fun things and been able to show them that. Yeah. But like you said, I think I'm a person that I will wait to do something until it is like perfectly planned. Mm-hmm. And that's never going to happen. So pray about it, and then if you feel pushed to do it, then commit to doing it and stick with it. And
that's right.
Like we said, we told all of our family, and our family told us, worst case is you don't like it and you just move back. It's not a permanent thing. So kind of keeping that mindset.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you can at any point come down, like if you want to move to Florida, come down and visit different towns and cities, because we would have had no idea.
Right. Don't just go to Disney. Don't just go to the beaches. There are really cool towns. There are really cool things to see and do in other areas. And
for those of you that are new, we do not live in Inverness anymore. We live more centrally located, and we're closer to Orlando now, because we did catch ourselves going to the theme parks a little bit more than we thought we were. But
I'll be very transparent. I do not care for Orlando itself.
Yes, the city of Orlando.
That's not, I didn't care necessarily for Tampa either. So that's not a big selling point for me. Right. But it is easier access to theme parks and stuff.
Yep. And we're super close to Mount Dora, which is a spot we love. Yep. And just kind of in a good spot where we're close to everything. So that's where we live now. Other than that, though, I think that kind of sums up our journey of where we're at now. I mean, there might be a podcast where we go into details on pros and cons of different cities and stuff. That's not what this one's about. This
is just our
journey.
How
moving
did
down
we
here.
Get here?
Yeah. And so don't regret that we did it. Have enjoyed it. Enjoy the weather.
Not 100% of the time, though.
There's been times that it's been a little tricky. Yeah.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but overall
it is the Sunshine State.
But it's not always sunny.
That's true.
But overall, I am happy that we live here, and I don't have regrets about it.
Agreed.
But I don't want to paint it as like once you move here, it's
all problems are gone.
Yeah, because that's not life.
No, but we are thankful for it. We're thankful that God helped it all work out like it should have. And the dogs love it.
Yeah, and now
Cats
where
love
we
it.
are, we're really happy with where we are. We have good friends. We both have good jobs that we enjoy. And all of those things that happened before, you not being able to find a job in Missouri, very stressful at the time. But if that hadn't happened, then who knows? You might not have, you wouldn't have this job, I'm sure.
It all works out like it
Wouldn't have
like
this
it should.
house.
That's right.
Wouldn't have this cat right here because he's a Florida cat. So
That's true. Got him in Florida. That's right. So I think, though, since it's gone on a little bit, we'll call it for this podcast.
Yeah.
I think it was good to kind of get it out there on our move and kind of encourage those who are maybe wondering if they should or shouldn't move.
Whether that's to Florida or anywhere else, just
Do it. That's right. So.
Or maybe it's not a move. Maybe it's just something else. But encouraging people just to chase after what you want.
Yeah.
If that's what you feel God has in store for you.
Yeah. Now that we have figured out this podcast, you can, in case you didn't get it last time, you can watch the YouTube video. It's on Spotify. It's on Amazon.
Apple.
It's on Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching it on YouTube, we always love when you comment with more suggestions on what we should talk about. But I think that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for being so nice and listening.
Appreciate it. With that being said, that does it for today. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.